like to call the Education and Government Committee meeting to order. Any discussion points from committee members? Yes.
I'd like to say on Monday and Tuesday, I was able to go to NISAC, and it was amazing. On Monday was all day for newly elected officials, and it was packed full of information that we could probably get in a zip file for anybody who wants to review it. So these NISAC conferences are such a deep resource of information for us. But I just wanted to acknowledge the ability to go for. I'm very grateful that I was able to do that. So, thank you.
Any other discussion? If not, we'll move on to resolution recommending the state legislature provide for modification to New York State Public Officer Law to allow the Montgomery County Historian Records Management Officer to reside in Montgomery County or any adjoining county. I would look for a sponsor. Legislator Wheeler, second. All second. Any discussion?
Yeah, who's requesting this?
This has come through the executive. Yes, it's come through the executive's office. Should that be noted at the end of the title? Is it necessary?
Yes, thanks.
Well, as we're all aware, we have, with the charter, there's been some changes that, don't exactly mesh with everything that's going on in the county. And two of these exceptions are our historian, who we can all agree has done a fantastic job, lives right outside the county, as well as the other one is our public health director, who we've made investments in the county from a county perspective, training and to be one, for example. So I approached, we did some digging on how we can address this situation. Frankly, I think over the years we've kind of just let it go to some extent, and that's certainly not the way I would like to handle it, and I think we should address it head on, and this would be the way to do that. And this is what other counties have done as well. So, I brought it to Ryan's attention, and we thought the first step would be to bring it here to this committee to discuss it, and whether we move forward with it or not, it's something that I think we absolutely need to address.
You say other counties have done this?
Yes, Herkimer County, I believe, was one, and that was some of the backup that I had given Ryan is what they've done in the past. And I'd be more than happy to forward some of that around if you guys have had a chance.
Basically, we took this from working with that other background. Some of the other was the actual state legislation that was passed in Albany to allow for the modification. Further discussion? Yes.
I just want to add as well, Kelly is phenomenal. She's known throughout the state for her abilities and what she does. So
I've worked a lot with Kelly, and she does a great job as a historian, and she's a great asset to this county. Yes, Legislator Quackenbush.
Maybe a question for Doug. I know right now we're looking at these two positions because they're the ones that we know about. Is there a way to do this through state legislation so that it covers, this public officers law right now, it talks about everybody that's a public officer. We're designating two positions just because we know about them and they're affecting us now. Is there a way to do it so that we don't have to go through this again if it were to come up again? You know what I mean? Like if it were to, is there a way to do it? There's a lot more than just these two titles that it affects, but it's only going to affect these two.
It affects these two presently, given the individuals who occupy those positions.
Right.
As we know. I believe that the legislature, state legislature, would deal with this on a case-by-case basis. You could put other positions through at the same time as you have now, as you're doing these now, but
Not necessary.
it isn't necessary at the present time. These two it is, in order to keep the individuals that you have who fill these two positions. I don't know of any other examples of this type of situation that we have with any other people who qualify as public officers in Montgomery County and don't reside.
At one time, there was a question about Rick being on the fire, or the EMS, Rick Sager.
There was.
Because he was in Fulton County, there was a question about him, but didn't that get,
It did get resolved. It did.
because it didn't
Several
fall
years
under
ago.
this? It didn't fall under it, or what was the?
You know, trying to recall back to the specifics of that, that was nearly 10 years ago. We did resolve that situation so
Because
that he
if we didn't,
qualified.
then that would be another
The
one
exact
that you want.
mechanics that we used to do it, I don't recall off the top of my head. We can check that for you, but these two positions, by definition, qualify as public officers, and therein lies the problem with them not residing in the county.
Your recommendation for the future is if there is, problem exists, just do a case by case.
I would say do it on a case-by-case basis. We also did a similar procedure a number of years back at the request of the district attorney to
Yes.
allow us to have assistant district attorney live in an adjoining county rather than the county itself.
That's fine.
And I don't think the intention here is to not honor and respect the current law. It's just that this is a somewhat unique situation, and if they do live just outside the county lines, and as well respected, especially in Kelly's case, we look to address the exception, not the rule. And, I certainly respect the rule, but, I just would hate to see two of our team members who are doing a good job, are in the flow of things, and having to start from scratch, especially with the public health position. I believe our neighbors to the North Fulton County just had to hire someone down from New York City to be their public health director. So,
And if I may, if you look at state law, various titles of state law, the way that the state legislature handles this type of thing is to do it on a case-by-case basis, county by county and position by position. You'll see specific provisions in state law where the state legislature has enacted a provision that says, for example, the Herkimer County Public Health Director is entitled to live in Herkimer County or an adjoining county. There are specific provisions that apply to each one. That's how the legislature handles it.
Legislator DeChessie?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, let me understand this. I know the charter is a change, but what we're talking about is public officer law. That didn't change, did it?
No, this
So
is,
essentially, then we can make the assumption that when these people were appointed, they met the public officers law criteria. They lived in the county when they were appointed.
In answer to that question, that is true in one of the examples and not the other.
Okay, so one of the people never lived in the county.
Well, I wouldn't say never, but
They didn't live in the county at the time of their appointment.
I believe that to be the case,
So the
yes.
appointment was
One
made
did, one did
inappropriately to
not.
begin with.
Yes.
you will say. Legislator Wheeler.
I know we're on, the appointment for the first one, the historian, but the other one as well. I know the full dynamics of it, and regardless of the past and what was going forward, both of these employees are exemplary in what both Kelly and Kim bring. I think it is I think the executive worded it both eloquently and specifically why I'm supporting this. It is not only a cost benefit to us, but both of these employees bring such assets to this county that is exactly why I support this.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'm really not referring to the job that these people are doing. I'm aware, for instance, of the whole number of records management grants that have been won by Kelly, and he does a great job. That's not what I'm talking about. This now, I mean, we're only a couple meetings into the year in the new legislature, and we seem to be making appointments based on people, and we changed the nature of what we're trying to do based on who we want to do it. So then it seems like there's as long as there's somebody that we like and is doing a good job and we want to appoint, then these civil service rules and procedures or public officers laws are to be set aside at the whim of the legislature based on who we like and who we don't like. Is that the conclusion to be drawn here?
I don't believe so. This is, I think coming in January 1st, the county executive and I believe the county legislature had the same feeling that we wanted to maintain our assets as our department heads. And these are, without getting into personnel issues that we would have to go into executive session for, these are people that were appointed by the Board of Supervisors, have served the county for years, and we're just making sure everything is done by the books at this point. I think that's what it is. Legislator Kuchis.
Would I be correct in saying that these two positions, these two individuals, were in place prior to our taking over from the Board of Supervisors? That ergo, they were appointed by the Board of Supervisors. And I would think Matt wanted to maintain a certain status quo. So I think we kind of supported Matt in maintaining that status quo until such time as either we correct the situation through a resolution like this, or if we can't, then we have to find a replacement.
Absolutely. Matt.
Well, really, we had two options here. We could have turned the other cheek and pretended that this problem didn't exist and tried to address it. And the only viable way that I saw to address it was what some of the other counties have done. My biggest concern was that we were in fact not in violation of public officers law, regardless of who it was. I wanted to try to be proactive and at least get it on the agenda, say this is the issue we have, and this is how we can resolve it. By no means is it simply because of the people. I think they happen to be two people that I would like to see stay in the county as far as department heads. But I think regardless if they were even someone that I wasn't as enthusiastic about, I think I would have tried to address it anyway. And if it's the feeling of the legislature that, this is not an area we want to go down, I will certainly respect that, and we'll address it that way. That's fine, but I just want to make sure we're addressing it.
Don't worry about it, they're gonna go that way. I just want to address it a little bit further before I let it go. This is what I was getting at. I think, is this what we were trying to get at with the resolution that I was the only one to vote against last week, about putting the imprimatur on the appointments as they stood or whatever? Is that the similar?
The resolution,
Is
I
that what that was
believe.
driving at? I was trying to get an answer to that question. I really never got an answer to that.
That's where I was going. No, that was the intent.
Yeah, go ahead.
To answer Duke's question, the resolution that you're referring to was, I believe, the resolution that I had proposed that said that whatever happened in the past, Doug and I actually, Doug, you helped draft, and this is the short version. What happened in the past, we all recognize that, and we recognize what the former board did or may not have done appropriately or not appropriately, and we realize that moving forward, we're trying to do it all right. That's what the spirit of that resolution was for. And I happen to agree with Duke. I don't believe in cherry picking. And that's why, kind of where my question was based earlier, should we be doing some sort of a resolution that just allows all public officers in the future to be able to be from an adjoining county? Because I don't want to go through this again. And all of a sudden an appointment's made and, geez, for some reason the county exec offered up a name and he didn't know that it was somebody that lived outside the county at the time. Now all of a sudden the person's doing a great job or not, but all of a sudden we're back here again at square one. That's what I was trying to get at, Doug, was is there a way to do this in a broad sense so that we don't have to fumble through this again? Because I agree with Legislator Duchesne that it appears as though at times, or it could appear, and I'm not saying it in this case because we know the people, but it could appear as though my question would be, what would happen if this arose again by accident in 2 years? Are we all gonna sit here with the same stance and say, yeah, let's go ahead and ask the, hopefully it doesn't happen, but things happen.
Legislator
Are we
Isabel.
gonna- I'm sorry, are we gonna make a policy on how we're gonna go forward from here on these particular things? Or are we just gonna take them on an individual basis?
I think, I don't think there's really any, intent at this point to set, an overarching policy on this, but this is addressing two situations that have been existing for many years, and we just want to make sure that everything's done by the books now that we're here.
So if other situations arise like this, they'll be on an individual basis going forward now?
That's a problem.
I think that's how we have to treat it, it sounds. And Doug, if you...
I would agree. I would treat it on an individual basis, and while I can't guarantee this, to my knowledge, that these two, represented by these two resolutions, are the only two that presently exist that present a potential conflict issue between the appointments and existing state law that relates to those.
So from now on, our policy will be as written and that's it, going forward from here, unless we have something to consider.
If I may,
I guess, I'm just trying to.
Can I entertain the executive first? Thank you.
Well, I just want to say, moving forward, I certainly would make appointments with respect to public officers law, not put the legislature in this situation.
Right.
Legislator Kelly.
No, I'm just saying, if any other other cases of this nature come up with current personnel, so you don't feel there anymore.
I don't.
Go ahead.
I don't believe there are any presently. Now, I suppose you could have a situation such as the question which Legislator Duchesne asked a couple of minutes ago, where you have someone who holds a position that has a statutory residency requirement and unbeknownst to anybody moves out of the county.
Yeah.
Right.
It could be happening as we speak. Probably not, but it's a possibility. I think that the Personnel Department, the Human Resources Department, would monitor that sort of thing. And that's what happened in one of these cases. But in the past, well, the one that the example that I gave with regard to the Assistant District Attorney, at the time that was done, it came to the Board of Supervisors for the request to go to the state before the person was appointed. And once that legislation was in place, the person was appointed.
Legislator Kelly.
So if we're moving forward as a per case basis and we go through and we prove this, and then for some reason we go down the road and something happens, they move out of the county, and then we say, oh, we're not gonna try to keep these people here. Could they potentially sue us because we've already set precedent that we're willing to amend, appeal to the state to amend for certain instances? Would that be your response?
Yeah. Everybody's looking at you.
I
Well,
can't.
the first thing that I will say is I would respectfully defer to answering that question in a public session. I don't think it would be an appropriate thing to discuss in public session.
I'm not.
Well, he wasn't being specific about
I'm not
anyone, he
being-
was talking in theoreticals.
But let's say, it hypothetically, since we use that, we approve these two.
Yes.
Hold more. Somewhere down the road, let's say, I'm gonna put you on the spot, you're moving out of the county.
Who?
Ken or somebody.
He's already been appointed.
He's already been appointed, he moves out of the county. now it comes to our attention that he is no longer a resident in Montgomery County. And we've passed this, we've amended, we've appealed the state to allow us to amend the state laws for certain people. Could he, or whoever that person may be, come back to us and say, well, you've already amended, tried to amend,
Well,
to keep other people?
again, these are specific to these appointments. Could he come back and make such a claim? Certainly he could. He could make a claim for,
I would like to interrupt and entertain a motion from Legislator Wheeler to,
Move for executive session.
I think we're really bordering on what we should be discussing in public session.
well, for what purpose?
Yeah, for what purpose?
If we're asking a question about a specific personnel issue that is,
There are no names associated. I'm
if
talking-
this could be used in a legal setting for, am I wrong? I mean, if this is something that the whole body except for me would be comfortable with, I'll rescind my motion. But personally, I'm getting borderline uncomfortable with it because even hypothetically, this is getting into personnel. This is getting.
Well, for a person, for an executive session regarding personnel, that would be appropriate if we were going to discuss indivial
It would have to be a case of.
people that we were contemplating hiring,
actually moving out.
dismissing,
Okay.
what have you. And obviously, there are names and faces attached to these two positions, but I don't think that's what you're getting at. I don't think you want to talk about the present. If you do, that's fine, but.
Yes, because there's been one person in here and there's been certain things referred, that's exactly why I am calling. I was motioning, but if there's not a vote for it, that's fine.
Well, goodness, this is specifically for two people.
If you want to discuss these two individuals, I thought it was being suggested
The
more.
resolution itself is for the two people.
It's for
Right,
two
one at a time.
positions, yes. And yes, there are two individuals associated with those positions.
And the reason we're amending them is because,
All
sorry.
right, and let me just finish. I have no dogs in this fight. I am not, the dog in my fight is the constituents that I represent. So while I not only speak favorably of these two, it's because I know how they are as employees of of the county. So that's why I have spoken highly of them, period. So if you don't favor going into executive session, we've already said their names, that's why.
Legislator Gooch.
I just want to make a statement, Doug, correct me if I'm wrong. Hypothetically, anyone can sue anyone for anything in the United States of America. And they can point to any previous action by any governing agency to try to bolster their case. Ultimately, it falls back to a judge and a jury as to whether that evidence was sufficient. In my opinion, it's my opinion as not an attorney, that it's our intent here to correct a previously bad situation,
And
that we're not playing favorites, and that's my intent.
that's exactly what these resolutions are. We're correcting something that was done in the past. And we're not judging what was done in the past, but we're saying we need to do things the right way now. However, going forward, I entertain more discussion. However, if it is bordering on, personnel issues, we can address that at that point. Further discussion.
Just one more thing. I think the hypothetical situation that Martin described is almost apples to oranges. We all came in here as fresh legislators, a fresh executive, dealing with issues that were out of our control because they happened before we got here. Now, with that said, if I have a department head who knows public officer law is that he has to live, or he or she has to live in the county, and then decides to ignore that and move into another county while I'm on watch, I will not come and present to you, regardless of how well that person performs their job, because that's almost outright, the word is escaping me, but I would not come to ask for this resolution should that happen in the future. Like I said, I don't see this as something that's common, that we're going to do regularly. This is just addressing previous issues, because we're trying to clear up as many of these issues as we can. And as you folks know, I have plenty of these on my plate. So,
But
It's-
this legislation though would mean
Legislative
that
Chesney.
in the future,
Yeah.
people who hold this position could live outside the county.
Yes.
Yes.
correct. And that's why it's, this is a policy issue, and that's why it's in your hands. If you're not comfortable with that, then that's fine, and we'll deal with it. But
No, I'm almost done, but I just would, just to advise, I understand how important these people are, but we do know that, presidents have been assassinated and the country carries on.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, we're not saying that they're irreplaceable, or are we ready to give them a raise? Are they that essential? I mean, how would you address their, if they came to you asking for a raise, how would you
I'll
would you
second the
assess-
motion to enter into executive session. I think
Thank
we
you.
need to
Yeah.
at this point,
Thank you.
if this is how the discussion is gonna proceed.
Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
Legislator Duchessis made a point that I didn't think of. These two positions are forever hereafter, unless there were some legislation to go back to the state, always going to allow anybody after anybody who's in there now or not in there now, to always, am I right, Doug?
Yes.
It isn't just for so we're not talking about a person. we're
It's
talking
not,
about-
but the legislation would not be specific to the names of the individuals who presently hold these positions.
I run into a situation, it wasn't public officers law,